On today's episode, we have Scott Leese, two-time founder, author, strategic advisor, and sales leader.
Tune in to learn what a high-achieving VP should think about as they build their high-growth sales team, focusing on people, process, and 10x pipeline. Your success is our success, so let's get started.
From the heart of Silicon Valley in beautiful San Francisco, California, welcome to the SDR Live podcast with Marcos and Andy.
Awesome. Well, glad to be back on another episode of the SDR Live. Today we have Scott Leese. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here, guys. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, really excited. Definitely an A-list on our podcast, and you're just delivering nothing but insights and value. But a lot of our audience is kind of new SDRs that are coming into the role, so they might not be aware of you. So could you just give us a quick intro? I know a lot about you, but just curious and learning more.
Yeah, I've spent the better part of the last 2 decades building and scaling sales orgs at tech startups, SaaS companies, all around the country. Grew up in Northern California, spent most of my career in San Francisco, moved to Austin about 9 years ago, opened offices in Arizona, LA, New York City, Denver, all over the place. Wrote a book called Addicted to the Process, kind of geared for people who are just starting off in SDR role or in AE role for the first time a couple years ago. I got my hands in a lot of different things. I run my own consulting company now, helping companies go from 0 to 25 million, helping them build out their sales playbook and get their messaging right and their process tight and find the right people. I run a sales conference called Surf and Sales. That splintered off, and so I run the Surf and Sales podcast. I built a micro community called Thursday Night Sales. So we've done like 25 Thursday nights in a row where a couple hundred people get on and do a virtual happy hour and Q&A with myself and Amy Volas and previously Justin Welsh as well. Just finished writing my second book, which is all about how to become a great VP of sales. Hopefully that comes out around Christmas time. And staying busy, man. Staying busy.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you're producing, way more than just one person, but it's just, amazing to see. And today's all about how to have that career progression from a VP of sales perspective. So I think Andy had a question that he wanted to kind of kick it off and start off with.
Right. For me, I do realize that the topic is about VP and how to progress into that, how to scale organizations. Mine is a more personal question, maybe to jump off. I know in past podcasts, you mentioned that before the age of 27, you went through a whirlwind of health issues, autoimmune diseases and fighting off colon cancer, et cetera. And it sounded like it was a period of hardship, misfortune, and just a lot of uncertainty, I'm sure. I'm curious to kind of hear from someone who has been through quite a bit, if you had any advice for salespeople or people in general on how we can keep kind of our heads up and move forward from this massively uncertain time.
Something that going through an experience like that provides you is perspective, right? And it's difficult for me to sit here now at 43 and tell people who are 22 and 23, like, hey, don't worry if you're, don't have it all figured out and you're struggling in your current role. Like, you probably won't even remember that in 20 years. But it's true, you really don't have much to fear, because if you haven't been through something like that, like, it could always be worse, right? We have it so much better than so many other people around the world, or even here in America right now. If you've got a job, you have an advantage over other people. If you have a job that affords you the ability to learn and grow and succeed, you have it better than a lot of other people, and when all of that is stripped away from you, literally all that you can think about is like, what am I going to do when I get better? Right. And so, for me, I went through all that, and I just thought, like, man, I'm not going to waste any more of my time at all. Like, I'm shot out of a cannon right now. Marcos made a joke that it's like, seems like I'm doing enough for, you know, 2 people. It's like, well, fuck yeah, I'm trying to do that much because like I have this amount of time and it's indefinite. Like something could happen tomorrow and I don't get to finish all the things that I had planned. So I'm operating with an extreme sense of urgency, I think, all the time. And I live with not much fear because I feel like I've already defeated, hopefully, the worst thing that I'll ever go through in my life. So what's the worst thing that can happen? You know, this guy doesn't buy from me today. I lose my job. Like, you think I fucking care? Right? No big deal. You know what I mean? So we struggle. We fail one time. We lose our job. Like, you can find another job, right? And so I hope people, no matter what age they're at, I hope people know you can get that perspective without going through hell the way that I did. You know, you just have to sit with it and take stock of the things that are wonderful and bountiful in your life and move through the universe with the sense of gratitude. And it probably is helpful to talk to people who've been through some shit before. If you haven't, just so you can hear their perspective and, you know, gain some wisdom from them.
I think this is really interesting before we kind of break into like the main topic, because a lot of our SDRs are struggling right now through COVID from like a mental health standpoint. And I think your growth mindset can really lend some advice to them. And so, you know, what would you say are a few like tactical strategies when you're kind of like hit rock bottom and force you to kind of, you know, it seems like what do they say? Like you want to build a callus, right? So you're just not afraid of anything. A few things that I picked up on was like talking to people, understanding their situation. But I'm curious, like, what are maybe 3 topics that are tactical strategies that you use to kind of break through?
Yeah. Number one is I just kind of operate with extreme vulnerability at all times. You know, there's no sense in sort of puffing out your chest and trying to pretend like things are great and you're unaffected. Right. So just literally talking about it. And, you know, you could talk about it with your friends or your family or your significant other or a therapist or whoever, right? As long as you are not internalizing it as much and you're able to kind of let it out and blow off some steam and conversate with somebody about it. I think that's, you know, super helpful. So I would start there. The other thing that I like to do, and I've always done this, is if I'm struggling with something or my confidence is low, I try to go do something immediately that I'm really good at. Right. And then, you know, I don't know you guys from Adam, but like, I promise you there's something that each of the 3 of us is way better at than the other. Right. So if we were playing something or doing something, if we were selling and like, you know, I'm losing to Andy, right? Well, I'll be like, well, hey, Andy, let's go play some tennis, dude. You want to go play some tennis? It's like, I played college tennis. My team was like top 10 in the nation, right? So I'm going to go out there and play tennis. I'm going to whoop Andy's ass, and I'm going to get some swagger back, right? And so I think that's really important to do, actually. Like when we're low, stop doing whatever that activity is when we're not feeling great. And go do something that you're damn good at, right? It could be athletic. It could be cooking. It could be drawing, painting, whatever. Right? Like go do the thing that you're best at. It's really hard to go do that thing and not get a little swagger back and feel a little more confident in yourself. So that's something that I've always encouraged people to do. And it's something that I still practice and do, you know, to this day.
Wow. I love that. That's funny that you say that. I guess I did it innately. So I used to do professional triathlon for Team USA, and I feel like every time I feel down, I just got to go run or get in a bike ride, and there will be somebody on the trail on the bike, and I'll kick their ass. But it just feels like you just come back, you just feel rejuvenated, right? So
but you're looking at it through like a little bit different lens now, because before you might have been looking at it like, okay, I need to go run or swim because I need to blow off some steam. I need to get some exercise. But really, like, you're engaging in something that you're fucking amazing at, right? And so, like, you're hunting down this runner in front of you who's 50 yards ahead of you, and you're like, I got you, clown, right? And you're chasing somebody in the pool or whatever. Like, you're getting your confidence back by engaging in something that you're, an expert in. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that.
I had a question here. I know that the first point you mentioned was kind of speaking about, I'm sorry?
Vulnerability.
Yeah, vulnerability and like being truthful and honest about something you're dealing with. And I know I've never been kind of a VP of sales or been in sales management, but is there kind of like a silver lining or a line where you can't be as fully on and say that like one of your competitors just released a feature that you think might be pretty disruptive to the space? How do you, and then you're feeling some type of uncertainty there. Like, is there a boundary between like how honest you can be to your, to the rest of your team versus the honesty that you can be to yourself?
That's a really good question, actually, and something I think not just heads of sales, but probably heads of every department and CEOs in particular struggle with is like, how transparent should I be, right?
Yeah.
Is it helpful for me to share with my sales team how nervous I am about our competitor and what they just launched, right? I have always I tried to err at least on the side of being pretty damn open and honest and upfront. So I would probably, if it was me leading, I'd be like, dang, that is a good integration or a good feature they just released. Like, we're going to have to figure out how to fight against that, right? I'm going to err there as opposed to being like, don't worry about it. No big deal. Who cares? Right? It's like, dude, I don't think anybody's buying your bluff, right? And I think that will rub people, the wrong way. So I think the transparency is okay as long as it doesn't incite fear and worry and whatnot. Like, it's okay to be like, this is going to be hard, man. This thing is new. We're dealing with this. Like, I got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. Right. But we're going to try to figure it out. Like, we'll be okay. It might take a minute, but we'll be okay. I think that level of transparency and vulnerability is good. I think it crosses the line if you're communicating and then everybody underneath you or to the side of you is panicking and freaking out and is kind of unable to stay focused and do their job. But it's a good question. It's a tough line to draw, and I think everybody who's in leadership struggles with it,
Yeah, and I'm sure it depends too on kind of, the industry you're in, the coronavirus, right? A lot of external factors. And I kind of like that approach, right? It's kind of adapting to the times, but figuring out kind of what's your niche. I'm curious, like, say there's a lot of, SDRs out there that are starting, they're just getting their start and they're like, I like this sales role. Maybe they're a little bit more tenured. They want to go down the AE route. What are some advice that you would give to like younger individuals that want to potentially pursue a VP of sales type of role?
Well, I think that, you've got to get really good in the role you're in before you start fantasizing too much about all these other roles. Actually, earlier today, I was having a conversation with somebody and I said, you know what the best test to find out if somebody's ready for leadership is? Tell them you're thinking about them in terms of a leadership role. Because what happens is most people just fall to bits and they can no longer focus on the job that they're hired for. And they start thinking about, what else can I do to make Scott see me as a leader? And their regular performance suffers. That's what happens to a lot of people. But if I float that role out there to somebody else and they maintain performance while also doing a couple little things to kind of shine and show they have leadership capacity, now I'm thinking, wow, okay, this person can handle multitasking and being successful and powerful at multiple roles rather than just falling to the pressure because this thing got dangled, in front of them. So you've got to just continue to excel in the role that you're in. And the next best thing I would tell you is you should find somebody who's been there and done that a few times. And it's not necessarily about, you know, Andy asking me, what's your number one tip to be a VP of sales, right? Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody that you know, build a bit of a relationship with and, you know, can kind of serve maybe as a mentor or something like that. It's like, you know, when you're up, share that you're up and ask questions. When you're down, share what you're down and ask questions. And, you know, they help you navigate conversations, maybe, you know, to get a promotion. Maybe they help you navigate your compensation package. Maybe they are helping you evaluate 3 different companies you have an offer from at one point in time, right? And then when you're in the role, you're checking in with them saying, am I doing this right? Am I thinking about this right? What am I missing? So I think it's this combination of like, don't get distracted from where you are right now. You've got to continue to excel with what you're doing right now, and then find somebody or more than one person who's been there and done that in the role that you're seeking, that you can kind of learn from and apprentice under a little bit, if you will.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost, we had an episode on kind of finding the right mentor, and it seems like this would be more of like that career growth mentor that can kind of guide you through. But I like the point that you talked about where maybe you're not saying, hey, I want to do this job, but it's somebody else coming, you know, from the top saying, hey, I think you would be great at leadership. And I know you talked about how like VP of sales, it's all about, you know, people, process, and then pipeline. I'm just curious, like, what was your like reasoning there? I'm all about the people, right? I love to think that you have to lead from those that are under you, but I'm just curious, like, what caused you to think of its people, process, and pipeline?
This is an interesting topic because there's a friend and an associate of mine named Ryan Reiser who agrees on the 3 principles, but not on the order. So we've had this conversation before, but to me, it's all about the people first and foremost. You know, I guess I'm more humanistic than machinistic, if you will. Like, yeah. I've got to get the right people in place. To me, it doesn't matter how good my process is if I have unmotivated, undisciplined, untalented folks around me, right? And I think other people think, well, my process is so good that the people don't matter that much and they're, you know, interchangeable parts and bits. And I don't see it that way. Not yet. So getting the right folks around you means everything to me, especially in the early part of an organization. Like I've got to have people who believe in the mission, who are passionate about the, you know, product and the sale, who are going to do whatever it takes to succeed, you know, put in the hours, ask the right questions, have a positive, optimistic kind of attitude. I feel like if I have the right people, my odds of success go way up, even if I have a lousy product, right?
That's interesting.
I think I would do better with a bad product and good people than a really good product and bad people. And so that's why I start with the people in my ranking system there.
I had a question on that, Scott, which is like, all right, you talked about how, you know, they have a passion for the business, they're motivated. Maybe like you're interviewing someone for like potential AE role or even SDR role. What is like maybe one question you might ask to kind of get a feel for like, is this the right person?
No, I actually like to find out what people like to do in their spare time outside of work.
Oh, interesting.
Because so for example, Marcos, if I was interviewing you and you were like, well, I've been a big time triathlete, I'm immediately thinking to myself, this guy's super dedicated. Okay. Knows what it's like to suffer. Number one, number 2, right? Okay. And he's a little bit fucking crazy, which I like. I like the combination of these kinds of things, right?
Yep.
So you know what it's like. right? And you know what it's like to be passionate about something. And if somebody else says to me, well, I like to hang out with my friends and watch movies and things like that. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but consider the two different candidates that I'm talking about. And if I'm trying to optimize for somebody who's passionate and who's going to throw themselves into an opportunity, to me, the choice is obvious, all other things being equal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like to listen to how people answer that question, because I think if you're passionate in other parts of your life, it is inevitable it's going to bleed over into your career, and into your sales job,
Yeah.
And I've always said that my job is not to help people figure out what they want to do with their life. My job is to help take the people who know what they want to do with their life and help them get there. And if I can solve for that in the interview process, my team is going to be a little bit better than somebody else.
Yeah, I love that, because you hit the nail on the head. I am a little bit crazy, but when it comes down to like absolutely just like getting passionate about something, like that's definitely me, right?
I mean, most good salespeople are a little bit wild, a little bit nutty at times, right?
Oh yes.
There's a reason we've landed in this particular profession, right? So it's not a negative. I look at it as a positive.
That's great. All right. So I'm curious, as far as, next, which is like the process, curious to see kind of what your thinking is there for VP of Sales.
Well, to me, it's all about building something that will scale. So I can't have 100 salespeople pitching 100 different ways. And the sooner you start that, the better off you are. So we've got to figure out like, what's the right messaging, right? What is the copy that we're putting in emails that's going to resonate? What's the pain points? What's the value that we add, right? And so I'm building my sales pitch basically with scale in mind. How can this be repeatable, right? And I have to assume that I'm a better salesperson than people who are just coming up. So I can't just take what's in my head and how I would pitch it, put it on paper and expect everybody else to execute it 100%. I got to dumb it down and simplify it a little bit, right? So if you can take some of your skills and coach it in a little bit simpler way, that helps young people kind of grow and get better. And that's what you've got to do when you build out a sales process, because not everybody is an all-star straight away. I've got to build a sales process where the majority of people, not the top 10% or the bottom 10%, where the majority of people can hit quota, or at least come close to hitting quota. And solving for that allows you to scale a lot smoother and easier.
So it's almost like building the playbook. I think that's how somebody talked to me about it. Like, you're the quarterback, understanding the playbook, but you're the one that's building that. The VP.
Yeah. So if I'm the head coach of the football team, right? Yeah. And I have a rookie quarterback, how many times have you heard the expression, they simplify the playbook for the quarterback? And as the quarterback gets more experience, the playbook gets more complicated and it expands, right? It's the same exact kind of concept.
Interesting. And yeah, I really like that. I love analogies, so you kind of hit the nail on the head, especially sports analogies. But I think Andy might have had a question there as well.
Yeah, since we were on the topic of process, I had this question, and I'm sure that we can both agree kind of that salespeople struggle with not just finding a process that works and then sticking to it, but especially like right now, since we face so much rejection and there's so much uncertainty. I'm curious to hear from you, Scott, since you're like a strategic advisor for like over 9 companies and the CEO and founder, like through COVID, through this period, how have you seen kind of sales teams change their process, and what are some things that have shown to work?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, anybody who had any face-to-face element is obviously gone. That element is gone. And so they've had to adjust to, fully inside sales model and things like that. I think that the messaging has had to evolve and get more creative. And I think creative SDRs are the ones who are excelling right now. I think the SDRs who are struggling are still sending the same kind of messages that they were sending 8 months ago. And the ones who are doing well are really like off their rocker in a good way. I had somebody cold outreach me yesterday, and the subject line was something to the effect of like, what would Scott in 2002 or 3 want to know about Scott in 2020 or something like that? And I was like, what the hell is this? Right? Well, that's the point. Like, you got to cut through the noise, right? And there's a lot of people utilizing video really well right now, and getting creative with it and goofy with it. I have people sending me things, right? I get people who send me a bottle of tequila, so I'll take a meeting with them. But you send me a bottle of tequila, I'm going to take a meeting with you. Right? That's a no-brainer.
Oh, for sure.
A no-brainer. So what's working is creativity, right? Is creativity. I think not hammering people upside the head over, hey, these are difficult times. We're in COVID. I know things are probably tough. It's like, I don't think we need to talk about that anymore, right? Like that was necessary in the first couple of weeks of March, maybe, but we don't need that anymore. I don't think, at least, right? So a creative approach and really just a buyer-centric kind of conversation and experience. How can I help you? What do you need?
Yeah.
What are the things that you're dealing with right now? How are you trying to solve them? Have you tried this, that, and the other? What can I send you, right? Is there anything that I can explain to you? Has anybody ever taken the time to talk to you about this stuff before? Just this constant sort of giving of information, giving of knowledge. And at some point, counterintuitive as it may be, prospects are like, all right, tell me what you do. Give it to me. Like, I know who you are now. I trust you a little bit. You've been helpful for the last few months. Like, this rule of reciprocity comes into play, and it's harder for me to say no to Andy now after he sent me a bottle of tequila and sent like 2 or 3 interesting articles with data about, consulting, sales consulting businesses, and like which ones are thriving and which ones are struggling, and strategies there. It's like, the guy's trying to help me, plus he's trying to get me drunk. Perfect. Let's have a conversation, right? So I think SDRs need to really focus on those things.
Yeah, and something to iterate to the audience too. So I'm an account executive at Okta, but I still do my own prospecting. I still have the SDR muscle. Something that I realized is that standard messaging early on just wasn't working. So I just switched to a more account-based marketing approach, right? Where I did videos for all my top like P1, tier 1 accounts, and I've gotten into about 70% of them. So I just think just being genuine, showing video, they actually get to see your excitement, right? So it's not like you're like, yeah, right? You're excited about the product. And I think that reciprocates really well. And that kind of leads into the last point, right? With VP of sales, with pipeline, is generating pipeline. So I'm not, an expert on kind of the metrics that you have to hit with pipeline, but just curious, like your thoughts, your reasoning there. And then I think David Delaney mentioned you need to have 3 to 4x the pipeline to, close. Curious if you see the same way.
That what David said is sort of the textbook reply. Okay. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that's just like what you probably find that answer everywhere, right? What I have always tried to tell my people is, I need you to make your pipeline 10 to 1, like 10x the size of what your goal is. Because if you do that, you can trip and fall over deals, right? Like, it's just like a guarantee that you're going to hit your number. You can do 3 to 4x, but like plenty of people do 3x pipeline to revenue and fail still, right? So I'm always telling people I want 10x. And that comes from my early days of selling, where I felt like if I had 10 appointments on my calendar today, one of these fucking deals is closing no matter what. Okay. No matter what. Right. And that math provided a lot of security and comfort for me. And as a seller or as a sales leader, I want to eliminate as much uncertainty and stress from my day as possible. So if Marcos has 10 times what he needs to close in his pipeline, I feel really good about him. If Andy has 3x, I'm like, he's got what he needs, I guess, but like, you know, you're making me nervous, right?
Yeah.
So and 10x, you know, might sound extreme to some people, but it can be done.
Yeah.
You know, it can be done. You just have to put an insane focus on prospecting, right? And remove the happy ears that you have that all of these deals in your pipeline are going to close. Like, I just assume everybody's going to tell me no. And that keeps me hungry all the time, right? I never can stop because all these deals are probably going to tell me no. So I have to keep building. I have to keep prospecting, right? And I never get attached to any one particular opportunity. You know, I've found in my career, ones I thought were going to close don't, and the ones that I didn't think had a shot in hell do. So I don't get attached to any one particular thing. If you have one or two opportunities in your pipeline, you are fucking stressing clean to those things. And I would rather be in a position where if Andy tells me no today, I really don't care because I got 9 other ones and one of them is going to close and that's all I need. And that allows me to operate as a seller with like extreme confidence. And if I'm the VP of sales and my whole team is like that, well, now I know for sure I'm going to hit the goals that are in front of me.
It's a good thing to know, the kind of the last point of the confidence. I feel the same way, where it's, if you have that pipeline and you feel good about yourself, you're not going to, you know, be giving them 30-40% discount towards the end, right? You're gonna be like, you know what, like, dude, it is what it is. You know, it gives you more, I guess, leverage kind of when you're going through that.
You become willing to let people walk away. You hold the line more, right?
Andy, did you have a question?
Well, for me, I wanted to make a note. Like, my takeaways currently are like, fortune favors the bold. You got to be creative. You got to send tequila, but you also have to 10x your pipeline. But so here's a loaded question for you, Scott. Say that I'm a VP of sales or an SDR manager, and look at maybe the answer is going to change depending on the situation. Say that I want to 10x that pipeline, and I currently have 10 SDRs. Would my best route to take to get to that 10x pipeline get more SDRs, or like make the process more efficient?
Well, make the process more efficient, make your SDRs more effective, optimize through, you know, working with RevOps, sales enablement, whatever you've got in there. Coach your SDRs. The answer is not to just throw a bunch more bodies up there. You know, you can get there through making the most out of the group of people that you have and tinkering and tweaking the process for efficiency gaps. And I will say, if you're an AE, by also prospecting yourself, you know, I'm very glad to hear Marco say he still does some prospecting, because we're living in an age of entitlement where AEs don't think they have to prospect anymore. And I didn't come through that way. I was a full cycle rep. And honestly, every org that I've ever been in and built, I've had full cycle reps. I didn't build an SDR AE kind of model. So if you're an AE and you're trying to 10x your pipeline, but your SDR has provided you, 3 to 4x, well, what the fuck are you doing to try to grow it?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit around and just accept and place the blame on my SDR. Well, what do you want from me, boss? I'm at 3x because that's what my SDR did. No way, man. I want to make sure I hit my number. So if Andy gives me 3X and I can get 3X myself, now all of a sudden I'm at 6X. I feel pretty damn good about where I'm at. So I'd love to see a return of that kind of mentality from AEs.
Yeah. I think too about being an AE, and also like there's something to say about an AE that can kind of hunt for his own, right? Or his or her own, and then actually close that business. It's a little bit more rewarding, but also it kind of humbles you too, right? So you're not just closing all this business, like you're still I still cold call, I still get rejected, right? I'm still in the grind, but it kind of gives me that focus, like, you know what? Like, you know, it's a process, right? And to kind of iterate to your point earlier, which is like this growth mindset, right? You got to be a little bit crazy, right? Because this job isn't for anybody. But kind of as we wrap up, we always like to finish with rapid fire questions. So I'll start first, which is the old sales question. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose?
Oh, hate to lose. Not even close.
I love it. Is there a reason why? I'm just curious.
I think that when I lose, I have a difficult time disassociating losing from who I am as a person. And so when I lose, like, I feel like a loser. I'm not saying that's healthy by any means. I'm just saying that's how I have historically felt. So I don't want any part of that feeling. You know, I do not want you or anybody to have bragging rights over me. But definitely hate to lose is bigger for me.
I'm the same way. So just to let you know.
Yeah, especially in this space where all competitors, hating to lose has been quite prominent so far. And,
yeah.
As kind of a VP of sales and strategic advisor to so many organizations, I'm curious, there must be so many things that you have to do to manage your time, as well as keep yourself accountable, et cetera. So in the last 5 years, what would you say have you become better at saying no to, distractions, invitations, / what are some new realizations or new approaches that have helped? Do you have any tips for us?
Yeah, you know, I have become ruthlessly efficient in context switching and moving from one task to the next and staying present with what I'm doing, right? So like, I'm here, we're doing this show. The moment this camera clicks off, like, I'm instantly doing my next thing. I'm not going for a walk. I'm not taking, you know, some downtime. I'm not doing a touchdown dance. Like, I'm instantly into the next thing, right? And if you look at your sales floor when we were on sales floors, you know the people I'm talking about. They get off a good call and they give you the fucking play-by-play of the call. Like, that's a waste of time. I don't do that kind of thing. So I've certainly improved in that regard. I consider myself one of, if not the most accessible sales leaders out there. I respond to everybody's messages. I tend to take tons of calls. But over the last couple of years, I've tightened it up a little bit and said, well, what do you want to talk about? Like, what is your agenda? What are you hoping to get out? And if people are like, well, I just want to, you know, network and get to know you. I'm like, no, like, I don't have time for that. Right. Like, if there's something specific you need that I can help with, then let me know and I'll talk to you about it. But if you just want to like shoot the shit, like, I don't have time for that, you know, anymore. So those things, I've definitely gotten better at.
Yeah, I think it's some really good advice, specifically as you continue to scale and grow, because everyone can get better at time management. So kind of the last point is, you know, I know you have your second book coming out. Is there a title for it, or have you released any of that?
Yeah, I just settled on the title, but I'm not prepared to share.
Does it start with a V?
We need to send Scott more tequila bottles for him to
That's
share.
right. If I had a few cocktails already, you might have gotten it out of me.
Oh man. Oh, now we know the secret.
SDR fail right there. SDR fail.
I love it. But for all the audience that wants to go and follow you, what's the best way to reach out? Is that on LinkedIn? Is that a website?
Yeah, you can check out my website to learn more about what I do, scottleaseconsulting.com. I'm super active on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me there. I'll be a little slow to respond because I've got a big network there. I recently started my own Patreon community, and that's probably the fastest way to get a hold of me now. So there's about 125 people in there. I post all sorts of private content, hold private events all the time, and for $10 a month, you get access to me and text me all you want. And like I said, I'm pretty accessible. So I think I'm worth like a couple pints of beer a month to talk
at
to
least.
If I'm not, cancel on me, go ahead. But that's the best place to find me. And, you can find my book, Addicted to the Process, on Amazon. And the new book will be there hopefully by Christmas. So.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to read it. I'm curious about the VP of sales role as well. I mean, way long term, but I think it's something interesting. Andy, any last thoughts that you had?
Just that, thank you so much, Scott. It's really been a pleasure, and do expect a Don Julio coming to your house soon.
Perfect. 1942, you mean? Don Julio, 1942.
Oh, it has to be. I'm still an SDR, Scott.
Well, you could, expense it. Inside View has the money. They can make it.
You're right.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you joining us, Scott. It was very valuable, and can't wait to release this episode.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the SDR Live podcast. If you like this episode, please share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you tune in next week and have a fantastic week.